Celebrate. I'm Alec Velshi, and if you paid any attention to the U.S. jobs report at any point over the last 3 years, there's a good chance you've heard the phrase better than expected. You probably heard it again over the past few days following the latest jobs report for December. 216,000 net new jobs were created, much better than expected per CNBC. Back in the old days, we'd say that 150,000 or more jobs created in 1 month was good. There are now 1.42 open positions for every job seeker in America. While every available job is not matched to every available job seeker, mathematically, America has more jobs than it has available workers. That's just a fact. December's 216,000 is not an anomaly either. That's largely been the trend of the Biden presidency since he entered office in 2021. You can easily find similar headlines about better than expected numbers for June 2021, January 2022, June 2022, September 2023, for example. This has been one of the top achievements of the Biden presidency. It shows that he's been able to sustain a long-term economy throughout his first 3 years in office. Unfortunately for him, the optimism that outside experts have about the economy is not broadly shared by the general public, and it's entirely and seemingly willfully ignored by Republican voters. An NBC poll from November found that only 38% of registered voters approved of Biden's handling of the economy, compared with 59% who disapproved. In a separate poll of registered voters in 6 battleground states by the New York Times and Siena College, the majority of respondents, 59%, said they trust Donald Trump to do a better job with the economy than they trust Biden. The disconnect between the public's perception of the health of the economy versus how the economy is actually performing is deeply, deeply troubling, regardless of where you stand on the political spectrum, because it's a sign of how well propaganda works. It doesn't help that Biden's running against Trump, who will take every opportunity to distort the reality of the situation. So let's put that to a quick test, especially for those who think they'd prefer Trump to preside over the economy over Biden. During his first run for president, Trump set the bar very high when he pledged that he will be, quote, the greatest jobs producer that God ever created. And jobs he did create. Remember, I told you anything more than 150,000 a month is good. Trump added an average of 190,000 jobs a month in 2018. That's the best year during his presidency, which pales, 190,000 a month pales in comparison to Biden's weakest year of job creation, 225,000 jobs created per month. I want to take this out of the equation for a moment, 2021, because that's a lot of the jobs that came back because of COVID. Just take a look at these numbers. Biden beats Trump in every instance. And while Trump has been claiming that everybody had jobs when he was president, it's yet better under Biden. The unemployment rate, rather than the number of jobs created per month, has been another good indication for the economy. Now, people who've been watching me for a long time know that I have never liked this number very much because it's a percentage and the denominator changes every month. But Trump loved it, so I'm adding it to the comparison. The average unemployment rate in the last 2 years has been better than the rate at any point during Trump's lone term. Under Biden, it's actually been at 4% or lower for 25 straight months, the longest streak since the late 1960s. Again, in my youth as an economics reporter, it was widely understood that 5% is full employment. Doesn't get much better than that. I'm taking 2021 out again because that was COVID. So let's take that out of the mix. Biden stuff beats Trump stuff every time, every single month. There's a number of other indicators that bode well for President Biden, too, despite what uninformed or misinformed Americans believe. Last Wednesday, the Des Moines Register published an op-ed by Nikki Haley on the topic of the economy. It was headlined, quote, ending reckless spending will boost our economy and stop inflation. It gives off the impression that the economy is still in a downturn and that the inflation rate is continuing to skyrocket at unprecedented levels. That is an absolute lie, one which adds to the overall feeling that things seem worse than they actually are. Here's what one Trump supporter in Iowa expressed that sentiment to NBC News last week.
Our economy is really tanked the past 4 years, and everyone is hurting. I mean, the inflation numbers are, they say single digits to like 10, I think, percent, but I see much greater numbers. I see in my own life probably a 30% increase in inflation, and it's just really, really tough.
Okay, I study inflation pretty closely, and that woman's math ain't mathin'. But in case she or anyone she knows is watching this, I've got some good news for her and for Nikki Haley, too. Ever since the inflation rate hit a peak of 9.1% in June 2022, lower, by the way, than it was in most of the world because of COVID, it's cooled down considerably. It's actually been on a downward trend since then and is under control now. The inflation rate in America is now 3.1%. That's lower than wage increases. And while it's higher than the Fed's target rate, it's a number that most global economists say makes sense for an economy like America's for the long term. Presidents have, by the way, little control over gas prices, but they often add to voters' feelings about the economy. And in that regard, there's good news, too, because gas prices are also down, having gone down from a peak of $4.93 per gallon in June 2022 to $3.13 last month, the lowest it's been in 2.5 years. Even the stock markets, which Donald Trump loved to brag about on a near daily basis during his presidency, and I tend to prefer not to talk about all that often, has been doing better under Biden. The Dow has reached record highs in recent weeks. The S&P has been doing close to the same thing. The disconnect between how people feel about the economy and what the numbers and the data actually demonstrate is a real head scratcher here. And it is willful ignorance on the part of voters who actually earn money and have retirement accounts and buy gas and buy food and continue to believe that Biden's economy is doing badly, even though, well, I can't use the words on television, but the initials are BS. The economy is doing well and much better than expected. Those are just the facts.